Going to be putting together a 2014 Diamondback Century 3. Now this is an all carbon bike, except for the wheels. The wheels are actually just still alloy. But we're going to go through the bike, we're going to make sure it goes together, we're going to mess around with the derailleurs, make sure those are tracking straight and there's no issues with changing gears. And I'm also filming this on my Sony Action Cam. You can actually see that I've got it here. You can see what I'm recording, see what I'm doing. It's kind of neat. So Sony Action Cam works really well, especially when you Wi-Fi over to your phone. It's Wi-Fi, not Bluetooth, so it's kind of cool. So we're going to go ahead and start the unboxing process. Alright, I just unpacked the accessories box, which is just this box right here. Some of the things to be really conscious of when you're unpacking a box like this. You're going to have some little parts in here. You're going to have your front brake. You're going to have some mounts for your internal cable routing. Your pedals, your quick release for your front wheel. This is a dampening pad for your brakes. You're really going to want to make sure you hang on to this. This is carbon compound. And what we'll get to this, but this is used for installing parts on the carbon fiber so you don't have to crank them as hard. The parts you really need to be careful for is inside this bag right here. There are these swedges, so make sure you don't lose those, because these swedges are for your cables. And you're going to want to cut your cable short and put these on. So just, these are kind of loose in this big bag, so just keep an eye on those and make sure they don't wander off on you. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do, we are going to go ahead and take and rotate the stem around. There's some spacers in here if you want to raise up your stem or not, and you can actually just take and stack these on top, so you don't have to worry about cutting your steer tube, but I like to leave it all the way up. So the only thing I'm going to actually do is I'm just going to loosen these bolts, make sure this is straight to the fork, and then we're going to just turn around and go ahead and mount the handlebar. You want to make sure your cables are routed correctly, so these cables on this side are actually going to come around this side. And then we'll just start these bolts. Put the stem cap back on. And just start tightening these by hand. I won't need to put any carbon paste on the handlebar because the handlebar and the stem are aluminum, so there's no worries there. Now you'll notice that I'm not tightening them all down one by one. I'm kind of following a star pattern where I'm just kind of working them in to where they kind of seat down evenly. And then we'll snug them up. That way you're not worried about overstressing the bolts or stripping them out. One thing to note is this gap here on the top is actually, you're going to want some gap there. You don't want to have to worry about the front plate touching the stem, because if you do, you're going to be over tightening the bolts. You can cause them to strip or break. So you just want to make sure it's down snug enough. And then we'll use these reference marks here to help center the bar and give us the angle we want. But we won't worry about the angle just yet until we put the front wheel on. Just kind of get it close to where it should be. So the next step we're going to do is we're actually going to go ahead and put the carbon paste on this seat tube. The reason why is because you have an aluminum seat tube that's going to a carbon fiber tube. And then you'll notice this white line is your minimum engagement line, so when you put the seat post in, the depth has to be below this line, or else you risk ruining your bike or your seat tube on your bike. So we'll go ahead and put this tube on, or this paste on, and we'll go ahead and put the seat on. Alright, so the next step is actually going to be to put the tire on. So the only thing we have to do is we take the quick release lever, take the shipping brackets off, and put it together. So all we need to do is take that nut off, take the spring out, pop those out, stick that on. Now this is, you're going to want to have the large end facing out on the cone, and then put the nut on. Then we'll go ahead and put that on the bike. Okay, our next step is going to be to assemble the front brake on this. We'll wait to do the cable routing later. So the only thing we do is we take this barrel bolt off and then leave the two washers, because this is going to actually go through a hole here in the back, and this just goes through a hole here in the front. So go ahead and get that put together. Okay, so the next step that I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and finish leveling the handlebars. Generally what I like to do is make sure that this plane right here is actually parallel to the road, so that's going to bring this pitch down just a little bit. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and finish setting this gap here, and then the handlebar assembly will be done. Okay, so you notice that these brake levers and shifters are not actually on the handlebars very straight. So the only thing we need to do is take and peel this hood back. You can see there's this little mark right here, and there's a bolt in there that you just loosen that bolt and let you move these back and forth and get them on there straight. So we'll do that next. There. Okay, so next up we're going to take and finally install the front brake cable. We're going to need to take and unwind this and actually insert the housing in here, through it here, and down to this nut, and then we'll set the brake pads. We'll just show you how to do the front brake pad adjustment, because the back brake is already installed, so we'll just go ahead and show you how to do this part and then be done with the brakes. Now setting these is going to be a little tricky because you want to make sure there's an adequate pull on these to engage the brakes. So I like to make sure that they run a little stiffer so it takes as much pull. So it takes a little bit of time to pinch your caliper here and set your brake, get some of the play out of it. So it just takes a little bit of time, so we won't necessarily show the whole video for that just because it's time consuming and be kind of boring to watch. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is we need to go ahead and set the brake pads in place. You'll notice there's the strip here where this pad needs to be aligned, and the other thing you also need to be aware of is that the alignment here, how this is close and this is kind of far away back here. So this brake pad's actually kind of got a little bit of a ball joint, so once you loosen it, it'll move back and forth. So you'll be able to go ahead and make those adjustments. So we'll do that now. Okay, so now you can see we've got the brake pad centered on the contact point, as well as we've got the distance here dialed in. I'll go ahead and do that to the other 4 brakes, and then the brakes will be done. I'll just need to cut the cable and put the swedge on. Alright, we'll go ahead and put the swedge on. Just need to make sure that the braiding's okay, and just slide this on. And then just crimp it. Make sure not to crimp too tight. You can actually cut these things. Give it a little pull. That's it. Okay, so the last couple of steps we have, I won't bore you guys with the details, but the only thing we have left to do is put the pedals on and then just go through the gearing to make sure everything works. So we'll go through the front derailleur first. Usually the 2 stops you're going to want to do just to make sure the chain moves over like it should. And then you'll come back to the rear derailleur, and here's your 2 stops back here. And you'll use those as you run through your gearings because you don't want to make sure that the chain doesn't fall to the inside. That's why this little plastic thing is here. I usually take these off and then all the way to the outside. You're going to watch a thing for cross chaining. Usually it's when you get some rubbing here in the derailleur, so you'll just want to make sure that your angle here is straight. And then the factory puts this little sticker here for you, and this will kind of show you the height set. So you kind of want to make sure that these teeth match this red line, and that's the gap you kind of want to have here. So once that's all done, you go through your gearing, everything should be fine, should be ready to ride. Alright, well, thanks for watching. Alright, well, here it is, the finished bike. Everything runs good, everything runs smooth, and it's a good bike. The only thing I would actually change on this bike are these Michelin Dynamic Sport tires. It's a $15 tire, so you can't really expect much out of it. It's kind of disappointing they put it on a better bike like this. So usually the first thing I'm going to do is I'll probably take and swap out these tires to maybe a Continental or a Specialized Armadillo or something to ride around town. It's an okay tire if you're going to be riding on some bike paths that aren't really on the street, but if you're going to be riding the streets a lot with this bike or doing some races, I'd suggest swapping out this tire to go to something a little bit more puncture resistant. Again, this tire, it's a $15 tire, so don't expect a whole lot if you want to keep it. So that's all I have to say. So I'll post up some pictures as well and get some weight, and then enjoy.